Next, we have the Feather River Mill Hotel Incentive. Darren Gell.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Darren Gale, your Economic Growth and Public Affairs Manager. Tonight, it's a pleasure to be before you to talk about a couple economic development projects, but one in specific as it relates to our Feather River Mills site. As you know, for a number of years, the city has worked to see the Feather River Mills site developed. This is the site. It's abuts Bridge Street and Shasta and B. We have our developer here, Mehmet Noyan, who we have a DDA, a development agreement with, and he's moving forward with making sure that he closes on the project by the date certain in June. One of the key projects of this is a hotel. Over the past probably 7 years, Mr. Noyan and myself have toured well over a dozen developers, contractors, and hotel operators on this site. We believe that a hotel would be a great benefit to our downtown core, to our downtown specific plan, and also to move forward with the redevelopment that's occurred within this area. And we're very excited tonight that we have Lotus Management. We have Prakash Patel. I'm here this evening, who is the hotel developer and operator. As we toured this facility, as we toured this property with a number of developers, one of them that we were able to work with is one that works in rural communities, that understands rural communities. And Mr. Patel identified the site and said, "Hey, Yuba City is a great place, but in order for it to work here, we need to see an incentive." As we identified and looked at incentives for hotels, there's a variety of them that occur across the state. And one of the first things we did is we hired NHA advisors. Craig Hill's here with us this evening. And he had the ability for Mr. Patel to provide all of his financial documents to NHA advisors so that he could review them and say, okay, there is a need, and that the return on investment is such that he believed that the proposal that we have for an incentive is appropriate. Let me talk a little bit about what we're proposing as it relates. Hotels, wherever you go, charge a transient occupancy tax. I wanted to back up for a second, which is called TOT. In the city of Yuba City, we have a 10% TOT. Most communities are about in 10%. On top of that, there's other assessments. We have an additional 2% that occurs here locally that's for a tourism management group, and that is self-assessed by the hotels. To incentivize this project, we wanted to do a couple things. Number one, we want to see the project developed as quickly as possible. And two, we want to make sure it's successful. The way to incentivize timely development was first to put a date and allow the hotel operator to receive a TOT rebate for operations of his facility for his entire first year. However, that year would start January 1 of 2020. If he started earlier, of course, then it would only be a year from the day they start. But talking with both Mr. Noyan and Mr. Patel, I believe this is the earliest that they could open up, and that's basically starting tomorrow. And Mr. Patel has already signed this agreement and has said he hopes within 8 to 10 or 12 weeks that he would have plans before the city to move forward with a building permit for this project. The second one is to, beyond that first year, an incentive of not to exceed $600,000, and they would see a reimbursement of their transient occupancy tax over a 7-year period. So again, that would not to exceed $600,000 over a 7-year period. What would this look like on an annual basis? These are calculations that I came up with personally based upon the knowledge that I have of our local hotels, our market, average daily room rates, and occupancies. So on the left is the total TOT that would be collected on an annual basis over 10 years, so a total of almost 2.6 million. The second column is what the reimbursement that we'd be providing of a tax back for an operational incentives to a Yuba City Hotel LP, which is Mr. Patel's. So that's $750,000. That is an estimate. I would tell you the first year could be more, could be less, but based upon a lot of discussions, I'm making that number higher than what I expected it to be, because I'd rather come back to you and say, you know, hey, it ended up only being 700,000, not 800,000. And then finally on the right is the total tax that the city would receive through the operations of this hotel. Like I said, based on a very conservative number, in my opinion, as it relates to the hotel operations. This proposal was actually presented to your Economic Development Commission, and this evening I have Christine Ivory, who represents our ag sector on our Economic Development Commission, and I briefly wanted her to speak. They did come out and support this, but she was here to represent the Economic Development Commission, so I'll turn it over to Christine.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As Darren said, my name is Christine Ivory, and I'm on your Economic Development Commission. And we recently met to discuss several things and this proposed incentive. I will keep this very brief. The Economic Development Commission recommends the council approve the hotel operational transient occupancy tax incentive. So, any questions we will leave to Darren. Thank you.
Yeah, that was brief.
Talk to Barry about that.
Yeah, talk to Barry.
Give him a lesson or
When
two.
it comes to ag, she's long-winded, but I guess this one is different.
Well, no, if
I'm teasing.
question what the commission, I would gladly answer any.
So that is the incentive that's been proposed to you. I do, if the council wouldn't mind, I'd like to talk about a second hotel project. And actually, let me step back first. The hotel that's being proposed is a Holiday Inn Express of 93 rooms on the site. And actually, let me show for the people that are here, the site of the hotel is proposed in this corner. 93 rooms. Currently, the Hampton Inn, I called there again today. They were booked. But if I wanted to use next week, it was almost $200 a room night. And if I traveled down to Natomas or Roseville, I was $40 to $50 less. So we definitely know there's a need. Second, we have Mr. Gill and his partners and father, and they'll come up and speak a little bit about their project. In the staff report, I mentioned of not offering an incentive for this project. I've spoken with Mr. Gill. What I'd recommend to the council is that we sit down and meet with Mr. Gill and have him turn his financial documents over to Mr. Hill to review those, and then we will come back to the council as quickly as possible to bring back a proposed incentive for Mr. Gill and his projects. So at this time, I can answer any questions the council might have, and like I said, I do know that we have a couple speakers that would like to speak on this item.
Thank you, Darren. Any questions for Darren? No.
So we are going through the process of approving the first hotel or going forward? Or is this both been, okay?
Yeah,
Thank
so tonight, the recommendation is to move forward with the existing incentive for Yuba City LP, which is Mr. Patel's hotel on the Feather River Mill site. Separately, we will be going back, unless you direct otherwise, to meet with Mr. Gill on his project in his hotel, and we'll come back at maybe as quickly as May. It'll just depend on how long it takes to get the documents over to Mr. Hill for him to review their financial documents and work out, identify the need for his project. So,
Okay, thank you. Since there's not any questions, we do have a speaker card from Simon Gill. So Simon, if you would like to come up to the podium. If you can state your name and your residence, please.
Hello, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Simon Gill, a 30-year resident of Yuba City. We are owner, operators, and developers of the subways in the local area. We employ about 65 employees in this community. We have generated with our staff and the community well over $1 million has been put back into this community. We have, our last project was actually on Plymouth Street and Bridge Street, which I thought was a phenomenal project, which was the gateway to downtown. And that was done with the help of Planning Commission and coming up with all the style, the facade, and we agreed to everything. And we had no parking there, but we do very well there. I can't complain. So now my goal for the last 10 years was to bring another hotel to this area. And I looked around at many different sites, and finally we looked at downtown, we looked at New Holland Tractor, and it was just a penciling game, and we got a reasonable value out of the Woodward Street. And what we plan on bringing there is a Spring Hill Suites Marriott, and it's an upper scale hotel, which is going to be all suites. It's going to have a convention center, kitchenette. We do have a lot of, I guess, barriers, you could say, or restrictions, kind of. We are leasing some property from Caltrans. We will be obligated to make a right-hand turn into the property to ease the traffic. We are redeveloping Woodward Street itself with water, sewer, curbs, gutters, which is actually a public street that should be serviced by the city, but we had agreed to that. It is a business risk. We are going to be part of the Civic Center Boulevard redevelopment, so we will be contributing to that as well. And I just think I got this great opportunity to put back into the city, and I'm just looking for some kind of an incentive also. And if it's possible to just be kind of a level playing field, I guess. I don't know what the right choice of words over here are. But my point is that when a person goes on vacation, any of us go out, we usually book our rooms in advance. It's not like a cup of coffee, a bottle of water, or gas. It's not an impulse purchase. So with that saying that when people come to this town, they will already know if they're going to stay at the Marriott, they're staying at the Holiday Inn Express. I don't think a location is going to change a person's mind. We do have a little bit of brand loyalty. So with that said, I'm just looking for a little parity on this project. Yeah.
Thank you.
And through the mayor, Simon, I don't want to embarrass the applicant on this at all, but the need for a conference center is fairly large in our area by demand. Am I correct?
I see the demand very large, yes.
And your proposed project, how big would your conference center be?
I'd say it's about 400 to 450 people.
And what would be the optimum size for our area, given the different demands that we have in our community?
I would say over 600.
So one of the things I look at, and again, I don't want to embarrass Simon at all, but he was at an event in Sacramento Saturday, along with many other members of our community, because there really isn't the availability here, for the size of event that they were at. And coming home out on Highway 99, be just to the north of Lincoln Road, he and his family were hit from behind and put his vehicle into the ditch on the east side of the road. And I don't mean gently. We're blessed that you weren't hurt to a greater degree. He's walking a little gingerly today, but the more we can build in our community, the more that will be our community will use it. We'll have people. Brand loyalty is certainly there for both of these products. Folks will be coming in. There is a need, and I know that there's a concern, that all of a sudden about 200 rooms are going to pop up in Yuba City.
That's great.
But I will tell you that over time, those products, both of these products, will have a good occupancy rate, just given our area and the different events that can go on, especially with a convention center. So I personally would be interested in talking about incentives if we can get you to a larger convention center and have something on a little larger scale that would fit the needs of our community.
No, I'd be very well interested. I just want to say, working with you guys, the city, Steve Kroger, Darren Gale, Arnaldo, it seems like every time we could run into something, but we improve the project so much more. The exterior of it, the elevations, everything has increased the cost substantially. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's going to be wonderful once we all get together and we make it work. All right.
Any other comments?
Simon, if to build that conference from 400 people to 650 people, is the lot big enough to accommodate that?
I will have to purchase the 2 homes that you see right there.
There in the corner, okay.
In the corner, yes.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'm going to make a comment. Simon, it was a pleasure to talk to you this afternoon on the phone. And what I just want to say is that your willingness to always continue to improve just by taking suggestions and being open to it. And I understand it's very costly, but your commitment to the community has been very positive. And just talking to you for the first time this afternoon, I just want to say that your openness to do any improvements are grateful and will do well in this community. On top of that, talking about the incentives this afternoon, I just want to say that because that criteria and the guideline was put into place by the city, I believe 2011. So I personally would like for us as a city to sit down with you and look at those incentives for you, since those guidelines and criteria were already set in place. And I think the equal value and the fairness should be at least considered.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Okay. I don't have any other cards, so we'll bring it back for questions of staff from council or a motion.
Just a real quick comment here. I know that having been involved a little bit with the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development, different groups in the community, that they have tried to attract different tournaments, different events, and every single time it comes back to where there are not enough rooms to be able to hold any sort of a tournament or event for any of the events that they wanted to bring in. There were not enough rooms in the, they included over Marysville. And so, this will, while it's a big jump in a short period of time, I can tell you that the events that have been planned in the past and tried to get, they will be sought after again, and we'll get those rooms filled up with some of these tournaments and sometimes. And so now we're finally moving on to the next stage, which was getting the rooms that we needed. And I'd heard that said for the last 12 years. So we're finally taking that next step. It's a little risky sometimes, but it will happen and be good for the community and the business. With that, I'll make a motion. I got to go back to it to approve. Okay, sorry. I accidentally went on to another one here.
I've got it right here.
Okay, to authorize a city manager to execute agreement with the Yuba City Hotel LP to incentivize operation of a Holiday Inn Express in the former Feather River Mill project, as recommended by the Yuba City Economic Development Commission.
We have a motion. We do have a second.
Second.
Well, is there going to be a part B on this, or is that going to be another?
That's just
That's separate. That was
additional
discussion.
direction.
Was discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
We'll bring it back to the next
Okay,
future council meeting.
thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you.
All right.